Thank you very much for the introduction, Tom. I'm not sure if I agree to being a star, but I do work in the field, and I want to tell you about some new developments that we will hope will influence how some work is done in the field. And I want to talk about CAMI, which is short for the Critical Assessment of Metagenome Interpretation. And this is an effort where we want to involve the entire community in in a systematic evaluation of tools that are being developed for the analysis of metagenome data sets. So it's a very active area. There's lots of research going on, but at the moment it's very hard to compare different methods and across papers, across studies, and so both for developers but also for the applied community, we hope to provide a framework that will simplify this in the future. I think I'm going to quickly show you what I think are the important, or from my perspective, what I've seen as the important questions that we want to address in microbial community studies. I've seen more questions in this meeting than to what came to my mind, but so just what we want to learn are things such as how do microbes disperse across space, how do they vary in time if we look at a certain environment in depth, how do they evolve, so how do somewhere new species have to emerge, and can we find evidence for this process if we study microbial communities by sequencing, how do environmental parameters influence those systems, and what are the influences of how two microbes interact with each other or multiple microbes on the overall system, and how are the interactions between microbes and hosts. As you know, they're both important for our health and also in multiple other systems such as plants and various animals. And from a biotechnological and medical perspective, we also want to find proteins that are useful for many practical applications, such as we can use them the microbes can degrade plant biomass, for instance, which is a topic that I've been involved in working in. And to learn how they do that could provide new or indicate new interesting enzymes that will then be of use for industrial processes, and we want to identify those proteins that also influence our health, for instance. And to do all this is why people are spending so much money on the sequencing. And I haven't seen it so far in these talks, so there's been more talks on the modeling and on the physical system, but the analysis of sequence data, to get at all these interesting things, we have to do, or usually what's first done is that several basic kind of analysis are being performed. So we're generating data using different techniques, for instance, sequencing genomic data, the metagenome analysis, the metatranscriptome analysis, metaproteome analysis. They first aim to ask some basic questions. For instance, who is in my community? And for this purpose, they perform what is done is deep sequencing of particular marker genes that are phylogenetically informative. So that allow you, they sequence this marker gene that is universally present in the members in your community, and then this allows them to place the sequences from the different species in the reference species tree and get an estimate of who is there in your community. You can also do this by taxonomic placement in the reference taxonomy, the reference species trees, of random sequences from your data set. So if you have a large shotgun metagenome data set. And this doesn't even touch on the topic of the viruses so far, but there's also a viral taxonomy, for instance, which isn't used because it's even more complicated. There's different pros and cons to these two techniques. So if you use PCR amplification for targeted sequencing of marker genes, you have PCR biases in there. You can have the amplification biases and the primary predictive biases for certain regions. If you do shotgun sequencing, you get a more even, the idea is you get a more even coverage of your genome or representative sample, which is not influenced by marker gene, but primary biases or copy number variations of that gene, but you can't sequence as deep. The next question is then, what are these microbes doing? So, and for that, we want to look at their gene and protein contents. So we are applying the array of techniques that we have there to when we can isolate biological material from such communities. And but if we don't then further resolve this into which data point or which sequence fragment comes from which organism that is in the community, we look at the entire sample as if it were a bag of genes. And that gives you some kinds of insights, of course, in what the community can do, but it doesn't allow you to resolve it on a finer level. So for that sense, what you want to find out is who in there is doing what, and this requires you to reconstruct, in an ideal world, for every member in your community, the genome. And in an even idealer world, you would resolve it down to the level of individual strains. And the technical aspects of this process make this limited. So that's why you only, combining methods such as assembly and taxonomic binning is usually only possible for the most abundant species in the communities. And it also depends on how complex these communities are. But that's what you want, because that would allow you then to do all the interesting things that you really want to know. Like what are the functions of your members, what metabolism do they have, what individual phenotypes might they have, and how do they evolve. And don't know, when did I start? 5 minutes ago?
I'll keep an eye on time. You keep talking. I'll let you know when you've spoken too much.
Okay. To give you an overview of how this is usually done, the sequencing, is that we start from a sample of interest, for instance from this plant. We isolate some DNA material, we sequence it, and get a collection of reads. And if this is shotgun data, it's from any member of the community, any part of the genomes. We assemble these into longer pieces of contigs, and then these we have tools that do what we call taxonomic binning, or just binning, and they assign the contigs to the respective species, ideally, from which they originate, which are denoted here by different colors. So we have sets of contigs, and that's a bin. And sometimes these are also higher ranking bins. And then you can annotate them and do all the interesting things with them, so you can start to analyze and analyze the data as if you had genomes reconstructed, or partial genomes, or some data for a higher level ranking taxon. Now, why my lab has been involved in developing some tools. So this, I think, was one of the earliest tools for the taxonomic to solve the spinning problem. The tool called Phylopythia, and it uses k-mer counts for sequence fragments to place them into a reference taxonomic tree or species tree. And there's a taxonomic signals in these short k-mers, which has been known for a longer time, but we used this in a machine learning framework and got good accuracies with that. And we've been doing some, so for instance, you see here a community which is from a wastewater treatment plant, and building models for these different taxa based on their k-mer counts allowed to get a lot of data from this one really abundant guy, and from several flanking populations as well. And why was this necessary? Because for most microbial communities, you don't have reference data, sequences of closely related taxa. And so you can't just use sequence homology and get your genomes resolved that way. Now, I'm not going to walk you through all the details. We're continuing to do work on that. And I will not show you any results and any performance evaluations, because that's exactly one of the things that we now want to address with CAMI, which is that every method comes along with its own sets of evaluations, and which show some results and some good performance for a particular question, and they use a particular sets of measures to quantify that. But there's so much variation in all those studies in terms of metrics used, but also the data sets that they use. And that's why there's the situation that I would really say no method developer, no user really could tell you which methods or sets of methods is best for a particular problem. And that's why we started CAMI. And next week we'll have a hackathon here where we want to put together some of the final methods in preparing for CAMI, and which is why I'm speaking here, because I'm hoping to get input from you before we work in our hackathon. An input that you give to us, we can try to some extent to still incorporate. So the idea of CAMI is that we want to work with all the method developers in the community and invite them to participate in a contest to apply their methods to data sets that we will provide. And then we will also decide on a set of measures for evaluating the results. and also together with the entire community. We will decide on sets of use cases that are most interesting for the biologists or for the data generators. One of them obviously being we would like to recover draft genomes from our data sets, and which measure quantifies this best. Another one being we would like to get an accurate taxonomic profile. And hopefully this will then, in the context of this effort, we will therefore get a comprehensive overview over the current toolscape in the field, and it will become more independent by involving many people in the design and also in interpretation. And we're trying to make it as unbiased as possible by also incorporating much feedback from all sides. So initial targets are these tools: assembly methods, binding methods, and the taxonomic profilers. And we are generating data sets which will include around 750 unpublished genome sequences. From that we will make metagenome samples. So the standard of truth, the real truth, is not known to anyone who participates. And we want to make it as an incentive. Everybody who participates will be part of a joint publication with their results if they would like to reveal their identities. And we also hope to provide, make in the future benchmarking easier by providing a framework that will simplify that. And it could also indicate promising directions, how to go, in which direction tools should further develop, and maybe give feedbacks to the experimental side, which kind of experiments should be performed if you want to aim at a particular question. This is similar to things that have been done in the field like CASP or CAGI. So there's other contests, and I've talked to Peter Alloy this week, who was involved in the early days in CASP, and he really said that changed the way that benchmarking was done in this field. And I hope that we will be able to make a difference here. And these are the people that are currently involved. So I'm listing all data contributors here. There's some data from JGI, from and isolates also being generated at the Max Planck Institute in Cologne, from Paul Scholz-Lefferts lab. Julia Vorholt, who is here, is contributing isolates for the effort. And then there's also people involved in generating the whole simulation pipeline and evaluation frameworks. And yeah, so that's it. That's it.
Perfect 10 minutes. Do we have any perfect questions?
Okay, let it sink. I'm here for 2 weeks, and also my co-organizers, Thomas Ratte and Alex Gerber, are here. And we appreciate all kinds of feedback that we could get from you.
Well, in that case, you can ask Alice over coffee. Thank you very much.
Yeah.